Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 355, cover dated May 1998. Cover caption is Showdown with Alpha Flight. This is Alpha Flight on the right hand side of the cover. It is a new team for the 90s. Recently at Marvel they had a new Alpha Flight title published, and all I can remember is that the artist of the initial few issues was Scott Clark, formerly of Stormwatch, way back in 1992 from Wildstorm. And so yeah, this is the new team here. I don't know the names of all the members, but you can see some of the original members of Alpha Flight are still there, such as Sasquatch, Puck, Heather MacDonald there, as well as Vindicator. But there's something up with Vindicator in this particular era because, of course, famously he died in volume 1 of Alpha Flight, John Byrne's volume 1. And on the left we have the X-Men facing off against them. There's no background here, so all of the work is going on the figure drawing and the composition itself, which works very well. We have the signature here, a kind of a witty signature, a Topher Town gig. So that's the combination of Christopher Bachalo and Tim Townsend. And yeah, it's a nice cover. Let's open this one up to the first page. So we get a 9-panel grid for the first page, a steady focus on a portrait of Professor X with one side of his face mostly in shadow, which is kind of an interesting choice for a photo portrait. And of course, the location of that photo portrait is the X Mansion in Salem Center, New York. And there's an answering machine, but it's a new one because Bastion and Operation Zero Tolerance stripped the X Mansion of all of its technology, including the telephones. And so they only have a bargain basement answering machine, which doesn't have a lot of room for messages. You've reached the Xavier Institute for Higher Learning. This answering machine is new and the record time is brief, so leave a short message after the beep. So who's the first caller? It's Kurt Wagner. It's Kurt calling from Mur Island. Is anyone there? Hello? Oh well, I'll try back tag. Tag, of course, meaning Guten Tag, or good day to you. And then you've the same message again. Yes, hello, this is Margaret Stone from the Department of Education. She showed up a couple of issues ago, and there's prospect of trouble for the Institute's certification by the US Board of Education. So a representative of theirs, Marta Waltz, is coming to stay at the facility beginning, and then the recording is cut off because there isn't the space for anything more. I like the little detail of the field mouse here climbing over the machine and sniffing at this gem encrusted ring. Whose ring is that? And then the message goes off again. Logan, it's Gene. Listen, Scott and I just want you to know that we made it up to Anchorage in one piece. The house was still standing. We made some new friends, but the thing is and then of course she's cut off. Wow, that is short. Gene again. We had an emergency landing in Canada and encountered some very suspicious looking Department H troops. Seemed strange, definitely un-Canadian. Thought you should know. Call us when you get the message. So, where is Logan? Let's turn the page. There he is. We got a splash page. 23 pages of story and art in this comic, and that opening 9-panel grid will bookend the comic story itself. We'll see it again on page 23. Title of this is North and South, and the creator credits are Steve Seagle, that's Stephen T. Seagle, writer, Chris Bachalo, penciler, Tim Townsend with John Beatty and Andy Smith, inkers. So Townsend does the first third of the comic, and I'll point out when Beatty and Smith take over on the remaining pages. And always that's an indication of a deadline crunch, but also in this instance it follows from the fact that Tim Townsend is a very, very precise and careful inker. A lot of lines on the page. My guess is he was using micron pens at the time, and so no doubt it took a long time to ink these pages. No way was he doing 2 pages per day or anything like that. So I love the speed lines here on these opening pages as Logan is on his motorbike. I like the little detail here of the Wolverine stripes and colours, the blue and the yellow, on the gas tank of his motorbike. And who's chained up on the back? Well, it is Karl Lykos, Sauron. So he's kind of in a transitional phase, transforming back into Karl Lykos, but he's not fully there yet. You can see his beak kind of sticking out, or sticking beneath the coverings that are on him. And Logan is driving him down to Manhattan so that he can be handed over to, I think, S.H.I.E.L.D., and then that will be the end of the X-Men having to deal with him. So we have a first-person narration, and it's Logan's. Name's Wolverine, and I'm the best there is at what I do. I'm also an X-Man, meaning the mutant genes I was born with give me hypersenses and a healing factor I use to try and make this world a better place. Today I'm riding a hog with a monster named Sauron strapped to the back of it into the city. Guess that means if there was a contest of lots of guys doing the same, I'd win. I love the detail here of, in Bachalo's art, of Wolverine's hair being whipped back by the wind as he's driving at speed down to the city. The rest of the creative team here, Richard Starkings and Emerson Miranda on digital lettering, and Steve Buccellato on the digital colours. So Sauron / Karl Lykos is complaining, let me out of here please, this is inhumane. Logan gives him a punch in the beak. Pipe down, Birdman, inhumane, give me a break. You're the one decided to come to my house, attack me and mine, and try to get away with murder. So a reference to the previous couple of issues. Got yourself a problem, Lykos. Every time we X-Men think your Sauron days are over, you come back for more. Now I'm hauling your big ugly beak into the city and dumping your duff off with someone willing to keep you under wraps for as long as it takes to put an end to your problem. Now quit struggling, he says, and in the background you can see this aircraft arcing down and then it buzzes them. And so Logan is knocked off the bike here. You can see it screeching. Lykos is dropped onto the road. What's going on, he asks. There goes the aircraft streaking up into the air again. Logan grabs Lykos and he says, well, for one thing, I'd say you're getting a load lighter as the day goes on. For another, I think we just witnessed one of those X-File things. I got a feeling, he says to himself, I'm one of those men where being the best ain't good enough, and this is going to be one of those days. So really nice opening here, these 2 pages. Love the art. And then we switch to the big city itself, South Manhattan, the Agi Institute for Genetic Studies, a small research facility that has recently come under national scrutiny, where a young woman bearing a terrible burden has come against all better judgment, seeking succor. So of course this is Rogue. She saw the institute advertised on TV and she's made her way there because she's feeling guilty about everything that happened in Antarctica, and she wants to be rid of her mutant powers. And also the fact that since she got back from Antarctica, she's felt a compulsion to start touching people, such as Joseph when she gave him mouth to mouth, and Wolverine when he was unconscious after Sauron's attack. Really like the establishing shot here of the side of the Agi Institute, and also look, see, we have these black birds once again. What do they portend? It's a little mystery that's been building. So Agi there, the doctor himself takes a skin cell sample from the inside of Rogue's cheek, and he says, that's it, you're free to go. Just schedule your follow-up with Martha on the way out. So Rogue asks, that's all? And he says, today is just about getting things moving. There's a lot I have to determine about your genetic code from this sample before we can do more. Which reminds me, you didn't tell me what your mutant power is. And she says, oh yeah, I'll tell you next time. Oh, sorry, can't shake your hand. So off she goes. And then we're back with Logan and Sauron on the road. Love all the fine hatching detail here for the pine trees. Really great work by Tim Townsend. And Logan in his first person narration is thinking about Rogue. Whatever went down with Gambit must have brought her a world of hurt. And I know as well as anybody that sorrow can push a person over the edge. Problem is, she acts irrationally. She might land all of us X-Men in a heap of trouble. Because once he drops Sauron off in Manhattan, his aim is to go find Rogue. So Sauron's complaining he's bleeding after being dropped on the road. Logan, unsympathetic, and I'm crying, he says. And Sauron says, why are you being so cruel? I'm weakened now, not fully in my Sauron state. Logan replies, not fully, no, but close enough to be dangerous. And Sauron says, in the Savage Land years ago we were friends. Now he's talking there in respect of his Karl Lycos identity, and if that's a reference to way back, the Claremont and Byrne Savage Land story, Uncanny X-Men 113 to 14. And Logan says, cooperating against a mutual threat ain't the same thing as being friends. And being friends means sticking up for each other, not stabbing me in the back while I'm sleeping. Besides, that was a long time ago, and you were human when we partnered up down in the Savage Land, he was about to say, but then stopped in his tracks by who was on that aircraft except for Alpha Flight. So now we get a good look at them in their 90s costumes. So a redesign of Vindicator's costume there. And then we've got some new members, Flex and Radius. These are half-brothers. We've got Puck there. We've got this guy in a robot suit at the back that Logan will think is Box, but it isn't. And we've got Heather McDonald up there as well, and Sasquatch. So I think Bachalo's version of Sasquatch here is pretty cool. Not sure who this is supposed to be, but she is from the French-speaking part of Canada. We don't entirely learn either her name or her powers in this issue. Perhaps it's inside here in the inside cover. Let me just have a little look. No, not. So that's not helpful. Anyway, that is a pretty cool anchor image, and I like Bachalo's choice to leave in reverse silhouette the deciduous trees here in the background. It's good stuff. Let's continue on. So Vindicator addresses Logan and says, under edict of the Canadian Ministry of Defence, you're hereby ordered to remand yourself into our custody for immediate extradition. Let's not make this any harder than we have to, Logan. We're fully prepared and equipped to take you in by force if necessary. So Logan gets off the bike. Sauron's all confused about what's going on. This is an interesting panel here. Everything mostly in silhouette. Put a sock in it, says Logan. This is a good page here. So he lights up his cigarette, walks around Vindicator, sniffing him, and then he simply says, as he heads around the other members of the new Alpha Flight team. And Heather lands and she says, Logan, just come with us. I don't know how it could have happened, but it, asks Logan. Department H, she says, showed us the surveillance videos. You murdered our teammate, Madison Jeffries. And Logan says, Heather, we're old friends. You believe Department H over me? She doesn't say anything to that, and then he whispers to her, psst, you might want to look into Mac. Smells funny. He's him, but he ain't him. Know what I mean? So what is that? I can't remember. I do have the some issues from the new Alpha Flight series starting with issue 1, but I do not remember what the story is with him. Is he a clone? Or what is going on with him? I can't remember, and we won't get that information in this particular issue. So Logan continues his walk around. Puck, been a while, good to see you again. Walt, you're looking a little mangy even for a Sasquatch. Might want to get some conditioner. Box, that you hiding back there? And it isn't Box. I'm designated Manbot. So this is the new kind of placeholder or equivalent of Box. So Logan says, these the new recruits, Mac? Awfully young for government work, ain't they? Kid back there is about to soil himself. Probably this one, Flex. I guess Department H briefed them all, told them what a berserker I am. Relax, boy, I ain't gonna hurt you unless you give me reason to. So this one here in the front, Radius says, I'll give you reason. Oh yeah, you want to fight me? Pops his bone claws. Let's turn the page. And yeah, grabs a cigar here. And Radius says, I feel like we've already fought. No way that could be, says Wolverine. You've still got your hair, all your teeth, bunch of unbroken bones. And Radius says, I fought a simulator of you in Combat Central and kicked its butt. So Logan asks, Combat Central, that's some kind of Ottawa espresso bar. And Radius says, you're pretty funny for a murdering midget nutcase. And Logan stomps out his cigar. Hey gorgeous, he says, I always notice a pretty face. She replies, why thank you, monsieur. Don't mention it, he says. But we don't learn what's her name, what's her powers. Don't mention it. He heads back to his bike. Thanks for letting me know Alpha's back in business in such a personal way, Heather. Good to see Department H is as thoughtful as ever. And then he says to Vindicator Mac, I'll talk to you again when you're sporting a civil tongue and some common sense. Meantime, I've got a delivery to make. So he's back on the bike and off he goes. We get a nice reverse silhouette there. Again, I love the kind of designy detail of the deciduous trees in the background. So now we have a scene switch to Alaska. And we pick up from the previous issue where Jean surprised Scott by being back in her original Phoenix costume, the one that we first saw in issue 101 of Uncanny X-Men, and it hasn't gone well. Is this what you think I am? She asks him, the evil omnipotent firebird that consumes your thoughts? And he psionically communicates to her, if you know my thoughts, Jean, then you know I want you to come back down here and talk about this with me. Now, sometimes Bachalo lets his arty, designy side get the better of him in respect of clear storytelling, and that's happened here, because where do you want to go for the next panel? You want to go here, but instead we're supposed to go over here and talk about this with me. You didn't talk to me a minute ago. You yelled, and Scott replies, Jean, come back inside now. Do you know how many people reasonably probably just saw that Phoenix effect? So she doesn't care. Who cares? Now, that doesn't sound like Jean Grey, who would be more responsible. This seems like something's gotten hold of her and she's blind to it. Scott says, I care. We both do. We came here for a new chance, a chance at normal lives. Come back in. Let's not make a scene. And you see, here's where we go now. Please, let me start by saying I'm sorry. And she says, you should be. I thought we'd come farther than you screaming at me just because I made a new costume. And he replies, with all due respect, you made an old costume, one that I can't. And then he stops himself and he says, Jean, we share a psionic link. You're in my mind. You've seen my thoughts. You know that I saw you, or at least the woman that I thought was you, reborn in that costume, corrupted in that costume, and killed in that costume. A reference back to 137. After what happened with the professor in Onslaught, you're a telepath too, Jean, and we don't know the limits and dangers of your power any more than we did Charles's. Are you certain there's no more to this than a new costume? So she hesitates, and she says, I'm sure, Scott, this isn't about causing you or anyone else pain. It's about ending mine. I do see your thoughts, ones maybe even you aren't consciously aware of. You constantly remember Phoenix, Scott, and Madeline Pryor. We don't always get references to Madeline Pryor, so it's intriguing to get one here. She continues and says, there are all these negative images of women who you thought were me at various times, and all their memories are marching around your mind wearing this outfit. But I'm here with you. I'm standing right in front of you, and I'm tired of their ghosts. I claimed the name Phoenix as part of a plan to claim this identity to empower myself. I'm tired of suppressing my abilities just because I'm afraid that exploring them might upset you. I want to be all I'm capable of being and convince you that I can do that without becoming some nightmare woman in the process. And Scott, of course, is worried. I don't know if I want to cope with that, he says. And she replies, you're going to have to, Scott, because it's the only way I can cope with it. And then she kisses him and says, this costume isn't symbolic of my corruption. It's symbolic of my rebirth as the woman, the only woman you love. Now, this all seems like it's laying the ground for a twist, for things going wrong. I mean, Jean will have her perspective here, but Scott's perspective too is one that's well written and persuasive, and it's the one that I'm sympathetic to to be honest with you, reading this. So then we're back with Wolverine on the bike again. And of course, that's not the end of it with Alpha Flight. So they're knocked off the bike by Vindicator. And there's Sauron falling again. And all the time, maybe because he's losing mass, he's getting a little looser within the bindings, the chains. So maybe he's going to escape. This is a nice page, nicely laid out. And Wolverine comes to a stop there, landing on Sauron. There's the bike heading on in the distance. And Vindicator lands and says, this will be a lot easier if you cooperate, Weapon X, because he keeps calling him Weapon X. So Logan there pops his bone claws. My friends call me Logan Hudson. You know that. So why don't you just call me Wolverine? It's a nice big shot of his grimacing face. And then we're into his first person narration as he lunges at Vindicator. I always thought Mac and Heather were my best friends in the world. Even though I'm not near him much these days, they found me dying in the wilds and took me in when most folks would have let nature run its course. Saw him a few months back and they gave me no reason to think things were any different. So that's a reference to Wolverine issue 92. Now today I'm forced to jump Mac like I'm going to give him an involuntary appendectomy, which is funny in respect of the fact that over in Adjectiveless X-Men, Wolverine was given an involuntary autopsy by the root tie. So you can see all about that in my review of issues 74 and 75 of Adjectiveless X-Men. But back into Wolverine's first person monologue. Makes no sense. Something's wrong with my old pal Guardian. And it all points to my ex-bosses in Department H. So, interesting use of a screen tone there. Effective use of a screen tone. And then I like this little sequence where Sauron runs towards this gas station at the side of the road, and then he runs right into Sasquatch, who punches him into a petrol pump. But look and see, there's one of these black birds on the petrol pump, and it's got a red eye and makes a robotic noise. Worst. So what is going on here? Is this an artificial bird that is spying on Logan? Farther south, here's another one, and it's looking up at Rogue, but it doesn't have a red eye, so maybe it's a natural bird. And she's flying back, and she's all hopeful of being cured of her mutant power, which has been a curse to her in the main. And then she spies all of this energy, all of these energy signatures on the other side of the trees. And of course, what does she happen upon except for Wolverine in the middle of a major melee with Alpha Flight? So Wolvie, what's going on? She asks. Attitude adjustments for our quiet neighbours to the north, he says, ironically, courtesy of their favourite expat. I'll go get the troops, she says. Don't bother, he replies. Doesn't look like I'll need any. And then he elbows Puck in the jaw. Help? And so she replies, good, hang on, or hang in there, and I'll be back in a sec with all the help you don't need. It's a nice sequence. It's well done. This is interesting too. We're getting, in effect, a 12-panel grid, which is a pattern that was used by Frank Miller in Dark Knight Returns. And I wonder if Bachalo was looking at that in recent times when coming up with this. Also, we've moved beyond Tim Townsend inks now. We're into the John Beatty and subsequently Andy Smith inks over Bachalo's pencils. So Wolverine deals with Puck there. He deals with the new guy, Flex. But it's kind of hard to see when we go from this panel to this panel how this guy's power works, that his hands turn into these blades. So Wolverine, of course, attacks him with his bone claws. Metal flexing hands, he says. Cute. Still, we must have crossed into Bizarro world. I think the kid just hit my fist with his face. Lucky for him, he didn't get the claws. Yeah, so Wolverine pulls his claws back at the last instant to punch Flex in the jaw. Yeah, it's a good sequence there. There's some good banter there as well between Logan and Puck. And again, you can see very different inks from Tim Townsend, kind of rougher style inks, less finesse than Townsend's. Vindicator here says, "You were always an honourable man, Weapon X. He never will call him Logan or Wolverine. Why are you running away from your own actions now?" So Logan says, "Gee, I don't know. Maybe because you're way off mark in your accusations. Besides, I may be running, but I never run away. A good scrap's fun, but I'm just trying to get some leverage so you can clear your screwed up heads. Use your powers now and you blow us all to kingdom come if there's any gas left in these tanks." So he's standing in front of the petrol pump. That black bird is still atop it, and you can see it's got that red eye. So it's recording everything. That's my conjecture. Wolverine pops his claws in terms of Heather's invitation to him. "If you're innocent like you claim, come with us and clear your name willingly." So he's not going to do that. And then she sees when he pops his claws, "Your claws, they aren't adamantium, but that's how we tracked you. That's how Department H said we were tracking you. The other reason why we were tracking you, they said you signed an agreement that the metal was still Canadian property. Seems the department's out of touch at best and feeding you a line at worst, don't it? Where are they getting their intelligence information these days?" The National Enquirer. But that has me thinking, what if it's from the Raven behind him on the petrol pump? I honestly can't remember. I mean, I've read the up ahead issues, but I can't remember anything from them, just in the same way I couldn't remember a thing from this issue before I reread it in advance of making this video. So as Logan is talking there, Sasquatch punches him in the back of the head, which is a sneaky, dishonorable attack. And Logan is knocked into a pile of tires there. We're back into his first person narration. For me, history's what makes me do what I do. Instinct learned over time, even when I probably should learn better. Anyway, you slice it, connections I've made in my past have always been my curse and my salvation. So Rogue has arrived with the X-Men, specifically Cannonball, Maggot and Storm. And Logan kind of humorously says here, "Told you I didn't need no help. Now get over here and help me." So Storm orders the X-Men to help Logan. She takes out Heather McDonald easily. And Rogue here is going to take on Radius, while Maggot takes on this Alpha Flight member. And then he starts hitting on her as well. But once again, he's surprised at Eenie and Meenie not obeying him. Let's turn the page. Yeah, so there's some banter here between Rogue and Radius. And Cannonball here attacks Flex. Last I heard, Alpha Flight was good guys. And Flex there is flinching from the impending attack. "We are, don't hit me, I didn't want to do this, I don't." And Cannonball stops. And he asks him, "You serious? You want to just surrender?" Or, "I can't. I get thrown off the team. And it's all I've got. My half-brother's on it. But I don't want to fight you." And so this is intriguing. Here is an advertisement for the new title. So you can see that's penciled by Scott Clark. So, yeah, we've got the two half-brothers there. And also that female character as well, whatever her name is. Let's continue. So Cannonball talks with Flex. "Look, I don't want to fight you neither, but you're the ones hitting on our buddy. What's that about? Why'd you all attack Wolverine?" So Flex says, Department H, our bosses, they called him Weapon X. They told us he... and we don't get the full explanation because we focus in on Logan against Vindicator and Puck. And then the storytelling gets a little confused because we're kind of going here, here, and is it here and here? Yeah, I think it's like that. So like this. And that's where, again, like I was saying earlier, Bachalo's designy layouts get a little bit on the wrong side of clear storytelling, but however. So yeah, like I was saying, Maggot starts to hit on the woman. We're about to learn what her power is here. That maybe she says, now see what it can do firsthand. She's about to say sleep, something like that, but then she starts screaming. And why is that? It's unclear. Meanwhile, Sasquatch in the background, has used, you see what I mean? Sasquatch uses Sauron in the sack to knock Maggot out. She's screaming there. Rogue is taking on Radius. And what happens is Cannonball intervenes in the midst of all the fighting and says, hey everybody, hey, I think there's been a big screw up here. This guy, what was your name again? He asks him, Adrian. And then he stops himself. Wait, Flex, my codename's Flex. Yeah, well, Flex says that Wolvie's wanted for murdering a guy a couple of weeks ago. That's Madison Jeffries, who I think is Box or was Box. But we was all in Bastion's jail then, so it couldn't have been him. So Logan's got an alibi, couldn't have been him. That's what I've been trying to tell him, he says. But all they seem to understand is a good rump kicking. Radius says Flex doesn't know what he's talking about. I say we get what we came for here. And Heather says no. We don't even know what that is, only what we were told. Department H said we were tracking Weapon X by his adamantium, but he no longer has it. So what are we doing here? I'm also starting to remember things about my own history with Logan, and it doesn't jibe with anything we were told. So she's got some kind of amnesiac condition, can't remember all of her past with Logan. And she continues and says, we're being used and by our own bosses. Like, that's always a theme of Alpha Flight. But anyway, she continues and says, I think it's time we returned home and had some serious words with Department H. And then Logan sees Sauron's gone into the woods. Now, of course, he can track him. I mean, that's one of Logan's major talents. But I think our kind of reading of this is that's Sauron free to fight another day. Because he doesn't go after him immediately. Instead, there's handshaking going on. And Storm saying, if Alpha Flight need any help against Department H in Canada, we will all come help. And Heather says to Logan as she shakes his hands, thanks, I don't know what to say. Don't say nothing, he says. Just take me up on it. If you need to, all you have to do is call. And so it ends. And then we're back, like I said, book ending with the opening 9-panel grid once again. There's the field mouse coming back the other direction. And there's a humorous little bit here. This is funny, where they miss a radio call, WNY's cash call. If you'd been home with the phrase that pays, you could have won $25,000 cash. Hope you didn't need it, and the X-Men very much do need it after Bastion and Operation Zero Tolerance stripped the X-Mansion. And then there is a call from Scott. Just wanted to it's nothing, never mind. So he rings off, and then he rings again. It's Scott again. I don't know why I'm saying this, but I feel like I have to. It's Jean. And then Jean interrupts him. Scott, who are you talking to? No one, honey, just... And he puts the phone down. And that's really like... There is something ominous going on up in Alaska. And whatever Jean has been saying about feeling empowered and reclaiming the mantle of Phoenix and being reborn and so on and so forth, it is... there is a ominous... shade to what's happening up there, and Scott is worried. And there's that Raven sitting there. Who or why is the Raven trope continuing in the title? Next, reunion, okay? Between who? The 5 original X-Men unite against a startling new terror in Alaska. So letters here about issue 351. Nothing 100% or nothing notable in there. And there you go. So Chris Bachalo, Canadian. Probably it was always a matter of time then before Alpha Flight would show up. And of course, their guest starring in this issue of Uncanny X-Men is an advertisement in a way for their new title. So that's always been a marketing device of Marvel's. When there's a new title out, have the characters guest star in a major selling title in order to try and sell them to new readers, the interest of new readers to pick up the book. And the last thing I want to say is I feel that this issue is the one where Stephen T. Seagal's writing settles and matches well the characters. I think he does Logan's voice well. I think Bachalo does some great work here with those couple of criticisms about the designy layouts when they don't serve the storytelling smoothly. But the art is looking great. And I think Bachalo and Tim Townsend work very well together. And I also am seeing, in addition to the Madureira influence on Bachalo, also a touch of Ed McGuinness as well. And Ed McGuinness had been working at Marvel from 1997 on Deadpool and the Deadpool Daredevil crossover annual or miniseries or whatever it was. So I think Bachalo, looking around at some of his peers at this time, Madureira, yes, Ed McGuinness now too, and incorporating some of those influences into his own style. Let me know your thoughts on this issue in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.